The mention of Lorraine Whittaker's name immediately brings to mind isolation, tragedy, and pain for many. She is the woman from such an isolated lineage that for decades, society disregarded her, a morbid curiosity from the mountains of West Virginia. She was the daughter of Rhea and Elizabeth Whittaker, first-degree cousins. Lorraine's story began with a decision many cannot understand, yet it was a common practice in a community where the lives of its inhabitants were defined by geographical and social isolation. In a small, distant town called Od, where options were limited and marriage alternatives were almost non-existent, marriage between close relatives became a practice that, to many, seemed necessary. To external eyes, however, Lorraine and her family became a genetic curiosity, an isolated family perpetuating a lineage marked by difficulties that no one dared to understand completely. Lorraine is seen by many as a symbol of the tragedy of consanguinity, as a woman whose name echoes in murmurs, carrying an invisible burden of judgments. Her life story is not just one of the physical and mental difficulties caused by closed genetics. It is also the story of a marginalized woman, treated as a curiosity, a distant and misunderstood figure rejected by the gaze of a society that never tried to understand her true essence. But what many do not see, and what few have bothered to understand, is that behind this image of tragedy and suffering, Lorraine Whittaker is a singular woman. A woman who, despite all the adversities life imposed on her, possessed a strengthened heart that many never knew how to recognize. What no one knows is that deep down, Lorraine was more than the stigma assigned to her. She was a silent but deeply important figure for her family and community. Her story is more complex, more humanely and beautifully resilient than many could see. Check now if you are already subscribed to the channel. 3 times a week, I bring real cases of consanguinity, isolated families, and the genetic consequences that need to be understood. Activate the bell to stay on top of more amazing stories full of lessons you won't want to miss. Click subscribe now. Today, Lorraine Whittaker still lives under the weight of the social stigma she carries due to her origin. The daughter of Rhea and Elizabeth Whittaker, first-degree cousins who married, Lorraine was and still is seen as a genetic curiosity by the society around her. The fact that her mother and father are married cousins, creating a lineage marked by consanguinity, remains a cause for prejudice and revulsion for many people. In the present, Lorraine carries not only the burden of being the product of a practice many consider wrong or unnatural, but also the burden of being constantly judged by something she did not choose, something imposed on her by her parents' choices. While some may see consanguinity as a purely genetic question, for many, this origin is treated as a sin or a moral error. To this day, Lorraine is still stigmatized by her genetic origin. The world around her still sees her as a strange figure, and her family's story is often summarized as a mistake or a genetic anomaly, without any understanding of the true complexity of the situation. For many, Lorraine's consanguineous mother and her marriage to her cousin are issues that generate revulsion, and the social prejudice around this still defines how she is treated. Even in an era more informed about genetic and health issues, Lorraine is not yet seen with empathy, but with the weight of ignorance from a society that does not understand what happened but judges without hesitation. People continue to look at her suspiciously, and often with a certain distance, as if her origin made her less worthy of being treated as an equal. The stigma Lorraine faces today is not just about her physical appearance or the genetic problems she carries. The story of her family, especially the fact that her parents are cousins, remains a source of social exclusion. Although she is now an adult woman, society has never fully accepted her. People who know her still treat her with doubt and distance, often without even trying to understand the true reasons she is the way she is. Lorraine, with her physical distortions and communication difficulties, continues to be seen as a marginalized figure, someone who does not fit social standards. But what few know is that she did not choose her condition. She did not choose to be the daughter of consanguineous parents. She did not choose to have cognitive difficulties or physical problems. All Lorraine ever wanted was to be seen as a normal person. Yet society rejects her for her genetic origin, isolating her even more. Check now if you are already subscribed to the channel. For many, she is a curiosity, something to be observed and marginalized. At the same time, Lorraine still faces a lack of support from doctors, educators, and even social workers. She did not receive the proper treatment to deal with the difficulties that recessive diseases caused in her body and mind. The social neglect of the Whittaker family in the past, and even in the present, is a reflection of the lack of resources and the isolation they have lived. There was no one to explain what was happening to her body and mind. And even over the years, support for her specific condition remains limited. Lorraine continues to suffer as the options to help her are scarce, and the medical community has not done enough to offer adequate solutions. Today, Lorraine still finds herself an isolated woman. Unlike everyone around her, the emotional loneliness she feels is deep. She still lives in a bubble of rejection where she is constantly excluded or treated with distancing. Even as an adult woman, she cannot overcome the effects of an isolation that began in her childhood. The lack of social acceptance and the contempt of people are the greatest emotional barriers Lorraine faces to this day. The world around Lorraine, unfortunately, still sees her as a curiosity and, in many cases, as someone who does not deserve to be understood. The stigma of consanguinity and the judgment of her origin continue to weigh on her, limiting her interactions and her possibilities for building meaningful relationships. The people around her, instead of treating her with humanity and compassion, see her only as the reflection of a genetic practice they do not fully understand. The social and emotional barriers are deep, and Lorraine finds herself once again fighting a stigma she has not chosen. Despite her years of life, she still faces huge emotional difficulties. The weight of her family history and the social prejudice she carries make her daily life even more challenging. She fights internally against the feeling of being inadequate and undervalued. In her mind, the judgment of others is reflected as an emotional dam that prevents her from living a full and fulfilled life. The shame imposed by society is a silent gag that prevents her from expressing herself freely. Although she is a woman who lives with many difficulties, no one sees her for the person she really is. Social judgment prevents her from showing her true humanity. She is not just a woman with physical distortions and cognitive difficulties. She is a person with deep feelings, with desires, and a story that should be told and understood, not judged. But behind the social stigma and the loneliness she still faces, there is a strong, resilient woman who loves life. Lorraine has a story that goes beyond judgment and social exclusion. What many do not realize is that she is much more than these visible difficulties. She is a woman of great inner strength with a rich and emotionally complex story that society has forgotten. Lorraine is not just a woman marked by genetic problems or society's judgment. When we look at her life in the present, we see someone who, despite being marginalized, carries a silent wisdom and a dignity that was never truly recognized. Her true essence goes beyond appearance or physical difficulties. She is a woman with a strong soul, a resilient heart, who, despite judgments and exclusion, continues to fight for her humanity and to live with an unqualified spirit. One of Lorraine's most unknown qualities is her ability to love and dedicate herself. Instead of being seen as a woman marked by genetic tragedy, Lorraine has actually been a caregiver and a mother who always dedicated herself to her family. Despite the judgments and marginalization of society, she has always been faithful to her own, always there for her children and siblings, caring for them with admirable patience, often without the recognition she deserved. Lorraine has been a woman of immense kindness who, despite personal challenges, has never failed to show her family unconditional love. Even in her loneliness and isolated condition, Lorraine has been a pillar of support for her loved ones. She not only embraced her responsibility as a mother but also showed immeasurable dedication to her brothers and relatives, always willing to care for them even when she herself was set aside by others. What society does not understand is that Lorraine's strength is not in her appearance or her communication difficulties, but in the depth of her love and her ability to care for others. The way she embraces the difficulties of her life with a warm heart is an example of resilience. Even though she is judged and treated with prejudice, she continues to care for those she loves. This side of her, the ability to give love even when she does not receive it, is one of her greatest qualities. Lorraine's true greatness is not in her physical distortions or the genetic errors caused by consanguinity, but in the willpower she demonstrates every day. She lives in a society that does not understand her and rejects her based on deep prejudice. Check now if you are already subscribed to the channel. But she still does not surrender. Instead of being dominated by pain or loneliness, Lorraine continues to fight for her dignity and her humanity. Her inner strength is what keeps her standing, facing physical and emotional difficulties, as well as the lack of understanding society has about her condition. In the present, Lorraine does not live in silence, but still faces the loneliness of being seen only for her appearance and the prejudice many hold against her. The rejection of society is not easy to overcome, but Lorraine continues to resist, finding the strength to live and maintain her identity. Despite all adversities, she is a decent woman, a woman who is not defined by the limitations society has imposed on her, but by her resilience. Throughout her life, Lorraine has become an introspective woman, someone who started to embrace her loneliness in a way few can understand. The loneliness she experienced did not break her but made her a deeper and more reflective person. She began to realize that society could judge her for what she was, but that did not define her essence. Lorraine, even living isolated in many ways, found a way to understand herself and to accept her difficulties. The inner wisdom she has developed over time is a reflection of her daily struggle to accept and understand her journey. Loneliness, which would often be seen as a difficulty, became for Lorraine an opportunity to grow emotionally and find peace. She did not need society's acceptance to be happy or fulfilled. Her strength is in overcoming adversities alone and finding within herself what really matters. Even with all the rejection, contempt, and isolation, Lorraine continues to stay firm and does not allow external opinion to define who she really is. Lorraine's true legacy is not in the judgment of society or the genetic distortions she carries. Lorraine's legacy is in her ability to get up every day to care for her family with unconditional love and to be a woman of great strength and wisdom. It is a story of resistance of a woman who, even in the face of a life marked by stigma, does not let herself be broken. The world sees her one way, but Lorraine Whittaker is much more than that. She is the definition of resilience and love. Someone who has lived a life full of adversity but never lost the ability to love, to care, to fight. She is not a genetic curiosity or a tragedy, but a woman who, despite all difficulties, leaves a mark of courage and humanity. Currently, Lorraine Whittaker and her family, especially with growing exposure on social networks, continue to live a life where public judgment is still part of their daily reality. Social networks, which are a reflection of modern society, have become a place where personal stories gain space but are often seen from a superficial perspective. Lorraine, as part of the Whittaker family, was exposed to merciless and critical opinions which are most often based only on genetic appearances and prejudices. But in the midst of judgment, there is always a layer of humanity that many fail to see. While many continue to look with contempt and doubt, there are those who decide to act differently, with empathy and compassion. The criticism and destructive comments on social networks do not define Lorraine's value but are a reflection of society's lack of understanding of genetic issues and social isolation. However, the Whittakers' story is not limited to criticism and superficial judgments. After the family gained visibility, Lorraine's story touched the hearts of many good and supportive people who saw an opportunity to help genuinely. These people realized that the Whittakers were not a joke or curiosity, but a family with real needs, deserving of help and understanding. With this, support actions began to emerge. Financial donations, material help, and support to try to improve the family's living conditions. These acts of solidarity began to relieve some of the family's immediate difficulties. Monetary donations allowed Lorraine and her family members to improve their housing, buy food, and even receive basic clothes and products. This support was vital to ensure the family's essential needs were met. However, although material support was significant, the true help the Whittaker family needed goes beyond the financial. Despite the good intentions of many, the medical and psychological help that Lorraine and her family truly needed remains an unresolved obstacle. Financial support was essential for improving immediate living conditions, but the impact of the cognitive and physical difficulties caused by extreme consanguinity cannot be resolved with donations alone. Lorraine, as well as other Whittaker family members, still faces the need for expert treatment, which is not widely accessible. Geographic isolation and a lack of access to specialized doctors remain major challenges. Furthermore, the absence of psychological support is also a critical factor. The social stigma and the emotional loneliness that Lorraine has lived with throughout her life have not been solved with specific actions. She still faces the emotional difficulties of being seen as a curiosity by society, and this requires continuous psychological support. The specialized psychological treatment that she and her family need to deal with the impact of their emotional conditions remains an unmet need. The story of Lorraine Whittaker is not unique in the sense that many isolated and marginalized people face similar difficulties. Her situation reveals how modern society often fails to provide complete support to those who need it most. Help for Lorraine, although significant from some parts of the community, is still limited. The lack of understanding of issues of genetic consanguinity and social isolation prevents help from extending to the most complex areas of medical, psychological, and educational care. The true reflection here is about what it means to truly help. It is not enough to give short-term financial donations or aid. What the Whittaker family really needs is continuous support from a structured network that goes beyond momentary gestures. A deep understanding of their needs must be a priority, and solidarity must become concrete actions aimed at transforming Lorraine's and her family's lives long-term. The story of the Whittakers, especially Lorraine, is a reminder that solidarity must be more than punctual actions. It takes a real commitment to the well-being of those who, like Lorraine, live on the fringes of society with few resources and even less effective support. The Whittakers' story challenges us to rethink how we treat the most vulnerable. By recognizing the invisible difficulties, humanizing people, and acting continuously and significantly, we can ensure that everyone has a chance to overcome adversities and live a decent life. True solidarity is what is given without expecting anything in return, with understanding and a commitment to building a fairer and more inclusive society. Today, you were invited to know a story not only of difficulties and suffering but also of resilience, love, and humanity. Lorraine Whittaker is a woman who, despite all that life has imposed on her, continued to fight, surviving, and above all, loving unconditionally. Her history is marked by a genetic distortion that came from past choices in a society marked by isolation and prejudice. The daughter of Ray and Elizabeth Whittaker, Lorraine grew up in a closed world where consanguineous marriages were common. Her life, marked by loneliness and social isolation, has many times been denied by society. And from this, her true essence and her human value were eventually forgotten, reduced to a genetic curiosity. But today, we have the opportunity to change that. Lorraine's story can no longer be one of marginalization. She deserves to be recognized not as someone who lives in the shadow of her family, but as a woman of courage, love, and compassion. The social judgment on Lorraine is, and always has been, superficial. Many people only see her from her appearance and the physical distortions caused by consanguinity, but they do not perceive the true fortress she has within herself. Lorraine is not a genetic tragedy, nor should she be seen as a worthless woman. She is a mother, a sister, a daughter with deep feelings and a story that is not just about the mistakes of the past. She is more than the stigmas that society has imposed on her. As a society, we have a huge responsibility to see others with eyes of empathy and understanding. Lorraine has always been treated as a curiosity, but the truth is that she is a woman of great dignity, strength, and wisdom. Today, you have the power to help change the narrative about her. By leaving loving comments, you can become the light she has always needed to rescue her from the shadow of judgment. You can be the reason why Lorraine feels seen and valued as the amazing woman she really is. Imagine if we all knew a story as important as Lorraine's, and we did something to help. It's easy to see someone and think that solidarity exists only when we are physically close, but that's not true. In the world we live in, virtual support can also be extremely powerful. Check now if you are already subscribed to the channel. By leaving beautiful and positive comments, you will be showing Lorraine that she is no longer alone. She may finally feel that she is not a curiosity, but a woman truly loved and understood. Every word you write can be the emotional turn she needs to find peace with her story. Lorraine, you are not invisible. Your strength is what inspires us all. This is the kind of message she needs to read. A simple positive comment can change Lorraine's day and help heal the emotional wounds she carries. Instead of seeing her story through the eyes of judgment, let's all choose to see her humanity. She is not just a victim of genetics. She is a woman with a heart, a soul, and a rich and unique story. It is very easy to fall into the error of looking at Lorraine as an isolated figure and labeling her negatively. But the truth is that by understanding the complexity of her life, we realize that the greatest gift we can give her is the recognition of her true essence. And that's why right now you have a chance to be a light in Lorraine's life. Let us together make her story worthy of empathy and compassion. Let's break the barriers of judgment and support those who need it most. Lorraine is a woman who deserves to be loved, respected, and valued. Her story is not a shame, but an example of resilience, unconditional love, and a fight for her family. By supporting her, you help rescue the woman who has always been behind the stigma and who has been forgotten for so long. Now, I invite you to be the change we want to see in Lorraine's life. Leave a support comment, share her story with others, and help spread solidarity. Here are some ready-made phrases for you to leave in the comments and help Lorraine feel more seen. 1. Lorraine, you are an amazing woman and deserve all the love and respect. 2. Your story inspires us, Lorraine. May your strength be recognized by all. 3. Lorraine, you are more than the stigmas you have faced. You are a true warrior. 4. I am grateful to know your story, Lorraine. Your courage teaches us all. In addition to leaving your comments, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with your friends. The more people know about Lorraine's true story, the more she will be rescued from invisibility. Let's make the world see the amazing woman she is, not as a stigma, but as someone who deserves respect and understanding. Her story deserves to be rewritten, and together we can be responsible for this change. The story of Lorraine Whittaker challenges us to look beyond the labels and prejudice. Each of us can be the light that helps rescue someone from a life of judgment and rejection. Lorraine, despite the difficulties and challenges she faced, deserves to be seen, understood, and supported for her true humanity. If you believe everyone deserves second chances and that love and compassion can change a life, then help rewrite Lorraine's story. Be the change. Be the light.